The stars have always called to us. From the moment our ancestors first gazed up at the night sky, they dreamed of reaching beyond Earth's grasp, of setting foot on distant worlds, touching the light of unknown suns. We imagined colonies among the stars, interstellar highways connecting civilizations, and utopias built in the void. We were meant to explore. But what if I told you humanity didn't leave Earth to explore? What if our greatest achievement, our departure from the cradle of our species, was not a moment of triumph, but a desperate escape? The truth has been buried, erased from history, hidden beneath layers of lies. Governments fell, civilizations crumbled, and with them, the last echoes of what really happened. But remnants of the past remain, whispers in forgotten transmissions, shadows in lost archives, hints of a catastrophe too terrifying to comprehend. The Great Exodus. A time when Earth, the only home we had ever known, fell silent. When the cities emptied, when the oceans stilled, when humanity vanished into the void. But why? It didn't happen all at once. No great war, no single catastrophe. Just a series of small, almost imperceptible changes. A shift in the world that no one could quite explain. It began with the sky. At first, no one noticed. A slightly different shade of blue in the daytime, a subtle distortion in the stars at night. Astronomers brushed it off. Light pollution, atmospheric shifts, solar fluctuations. But the sky was wrong. Something beyond our understanding had changed. Then came the disappearances. Not people at first, places, entire cities, gone. One morning, satellite images revealed a blank space where the city of Neumark once stood. A bustling metropolis of nearly 5 million people vanished overnight. There were no craters, no debris, no signs of destruction. The land beneath it was untouched, as if nothing had ever existed there at all. Panic erupted. Governments deployed emergency teams, searching for clues. But as investigators arrived at the scene, they found something even more chilling. There was no sound, no wind, no birds, no rustling leaves. Absolute silence. The very air itself felt still. More cities followed. Sawyara, Ekholm, New Delhi. Populations numbering in the tens of millions, erased. No distress signals, no evacuation orders. One moment, they were there. The next, nothing. Then came the signal. It was first detected by deep space observatories, an ultra-low frequency transmission, so faint it barely registered. Scientists dismissed it as background radiation, a natural cosmic occurrence, until it grew stronger. Soon, every radio frequency, every communication network, every single unshielded device across the planet began to whisper. At first it was incomprehensible. A distant murmur, like voices speaking from beneath the ocean. But as the signal strengthened, the whispers became clearer, more distinct, more human. And that's when people began to change. Reports flooded in from around the world, people hearing voices that no one else could. Some woke up screaming, speaking in tongues, languages lost to time, dialects never recorded in human history. Others stood motionless for hours, their lips moving soundlessly, eyes blank. But the worst were the ones who simply left. Security. Cameras captured them, men, women, even children, walking away from their homes, their cities, their lives as if answering an unseen call. They moved with eerie coordination, expressionless, ignoring their families as they stepped out into the wilderness, into the oceans, into the unknown. They never came back. Fear gripped the world. Was it a virus, a mass hallucination, a psychological contagion? The greatest minds scrambled for answers, but nothing made sense, and then the transmissions changed. The whispers were no longer scattered, no longer a random collection of voices. They became a message, a warning, not from the stars, from Earth itself. Something was waking up, something vast, something beyond comprehension, and we were in its way. The countdown had begun. The world's leaders knew there was no stopping it, no negotiating, no resisting, so the decision was made, not to fight, but to flee. In the dead of night, beneath the guise of peace, humanity prepared to abandon its home. The Exodus Project was born. In the frozen void of space, hidden behind the shadows of the moon, the Arcs were built. Massive vessels, city-sized, titans capable of carrying the last remnants of our species, beyond the reach of whatever was coming. The fleet was our final hope. But what no one realized was, we weren't the first to run and we wouldn't be the last. They told us we had time, that we could prepare, that we could gather our people, our knowledge, our history, and ascend to the stars on our own terms. They lied, because the truth was, we were already too late. The signal, the strange whispers that haunted our airwaves, wasn't just a warning. It was a summons, and something vast, something ancient, was answering. At first, only those attuned to the transmission felt it. Scientists, radio operators, deep space observatories, people who had spent their lives listening to the void. They became obsessed, sleepless, their eyes hollowed, their skin pale, their bodies wasting away as if something unseen was draining them. They refused to speak, refused to eat, refused to move, just listening, always listening. And then, one by one, they died. Autopsies revealed something impossible. Their brains were gone, not damaged, not atrophied, gone. The skulls were intact. The tissue preserved, but where their minds should have been, there was nothing, no collapse, no sign of trauma, as if they had simply vanished. But it didn't stop there. Across the world, something even more chilling was happening. People were seeing things, shadows where there should be none, not in the corners of rooms or the depths of alleys, but in broad daylight, cast by nothing. Silhouettes stretched across streets with no people to create them. Reflections in mirrors that moved a fraction too slow. Entire cities reported seeing the same impossible eclipse, a black void in the sky that no telescope could find. And then, on the night of the first departure, the moon disappeared. Not physically, it was still there, still pulling at the tides, still orbiting the Earth, but we couldn't see it anymore. It was as if something had swallowed its light, erased its presence. An invisible wound in the sky. And that was when the screaming began. At exactly 2:47 a.m. across every continent, millions of people collapsed where they stood. In their homes, in their beds, in their vehicles, clutching their heads, howling in agony. For 17 minutes and 22 seconds they shrieked, their voices raw, their bodies convulsing. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, they stopped and stood up. They did not speak, did not blink, did not breathe. They simply turned, and they looked up. Survivors described their faces as eerily blank, mouths slightly open, eyes wide and unblinking, as if they were no longer human, as if they were listening, waiting. Then, without a word, they walked, out of their homes, out of their cities, into the oceans, into the forests, into the night. They left behind their families, their children, their own names, and they never returned. We would later call them the Taken, and the rest of us, we knew, whatever was coming, it had arrived. The Exodus begins. With time running out, the world's leaders made a fateful decision. Humanity would abandon Earth. It was no longer about saving our planet, no longer about reclaiming what we had lost. We had passed the point of no return. The only option left was survival. The Exodus project was initiated in absolute secrecy. Under the guise of deep space research and asteroid mining operations, humanity's greatest minds built the Arcs, massive interstellar colony ships, self-sustaining worlds forged from the remains of dismantled space stations and hollowed out asteroids. Each one was a self-contained civilization, capable of sustaining thousands, a lifeboat in an ocean of darkness. But here's the truth they never told you. The Arcs weren't built to save everyone. There was never a plan for full-scale evacuation. There was only one unspoken law: the powerful, the useful, the chosen. They would leave. The rest, they would stay behind. As the first fleet of Arcs neared completion, the world outside descended into chaos. The disappearances accelerated. Cities turned into empty husks overnight. Entire landscapes, mountains, forests, rivers, began to vanish. Satellite footage revealed something even more terrifying. The planet itself was shrinking. Not physically. Its mass remained the same, but space itself was collapsing around it. Reality was unraveling. And yet the public remained oblivious. The governments of the world continued their facade of normalcy, feeding false hope, while quietly selecting who would escape. Then on the eve of departure, everything collapsed. The sky turned black. Not night, not darkness, something deeper. A void that swallowed all light, all color, all warmth, and from that void the voices returned. But this time they were not whispers, they were screams, not of pain, not of terror, but of something else. Something hungry, something waking up. And that's when we realized this was never our world to begin with. Humanity had never been the dominant force on Earth. We were intruders, and now the true owners were returning. The final hours, with no time left, the Orcs prepared to depart. The Exodus fleet, 12 ships, each capable of sustaining human life for centuries, prepared to leave behind the only home we had ever known. The selection process turned to madness. Families torn apart, people clawing their way onto launch, platforms begging to be saved. Military forces opened fire on crowds, suppressing riots as Earth itself trembled. And then the first Ark launched. A massive city-sized vessel, rising like a silent monolith, engines blazing against the dying sky. The first of many, or so we thought, because as it ascended, something reached for it. A shadow, impossibly vast, unfolded from the void above. Earth, no shape, no form, just the absence of existence itself. And then the Ark was gone, not destroyed, not vaporized, gone as if it had never been. The world watched in horror. The fleet hesitated, and in that moment of hesitation, the sky split, open, and something stepped through we were never supposed to leave, but now it was too late. The Great Exodus, when humanity abandoned Earth for the stars, Part 3. We were never supposed to leave, but the moment the first Ark vanished, erased from existence as if it had never been. The illusion shattered. This wasn't an evacuation anymore. It was an escape, and escape was no longer guaranteed. The fall of Earth, it began with the sky, not the slow, creeping changes of the past months. Not the subtle shifts in color or the distant whispers carried by the wind. This was different. One moment, the sky was black, devoured by whatever force had swallowed the moon. The next, it was bleeding. A deep, visceral red pulsed through the clouds as if the very atmosphere was alive. Great tendrils of crimson light snaked across the heavens, illuminating shapes, impossible shapes, geometric constructs that hurt to look at. Not symbols, not letters, something deeper, older, something remembering. And then the ground began to rot. Cities that had stood for centuries, London, Beijing, Cairo, Rio de Janeiro, began to collapse in on themselves. Not crumbling, not burning, fading. Glass towers, historic monuments, ancient temples, one by one they lost their solidity, turning transparent before vanishing altogether. The people inside them? They went with them. Entire populations ceased to be. No screams, no struggle, just absence. Satellite feeds turned to static. Deep space observatories, some of the last remaining outposts of science and reason, sent frantic final transmissions before falling silent. And those who remained. We finally saw it. Not with our eyes, not with our instruments. We felt it, a presence, colossal, endless, old. It wasn't a ship, it wasn't an army, it wasn't even a singular entity. It was everything, a force that had been asleep beneath reality, itself, waiting for something to wake it up. And we, humanity in our arrogance, had done just that. We thought the signal had been a warning, a message from some lost civilization urging us to flee. We were wrong. The signal had been a beacon, a final, desperate alarm, not for us, but for it. A cosmic predator had been stirred from slumber, and now it had turned its attention on us. The Arcs launch or try to panic turned into chaos. The remaining 11 Arcs prepared to launch, but the selection process had collapsed into bloodshed. Armed riots broke out across the Exodus launch sites. People who had once been neighbors, teachers, doctors, friends, now turned into desperate animals, doing anything for a place aboard the final ships. In the final moments, the lottery system was abandoned. There was no more order, no more procedure. It became a slaughter. As the first of the Arcs ignited its engines, thousands were crushed beneath its rising form, trampled by the crowd, burned by the sheer force of its ascent. The world burned around us. The sky split. The air turned to liquid static. And still, we ran. And yet, as I made my way toward the final transport, a single thought screamed through my mind. What if we weren't running away from the danger? What if we were running toward it? The first Arc had been erased the moment it attempted to flee. What if that was the rule? What if nothing could leave Earth, or worse? What if Earth was the only thing keeping it contained? That was the last thought I had before the void noticed me. A sound, not a noise, but a presence, tore through my skull. Not a scream, not a voice. A question, a single word pressed into my mind with the weight of 1,000 forgotten centuries. Why? Not spoken, not thought, imposed. Why do you run? I could feel it. Not anger, not hunger, curiosity, as if I were nothing more than an insect, caught beneath a magnifying glass, a test subject, an experiment. It was studying me. And in that moment I understood. Earth had never belonged to us. It had belonged to it, and for millions of years we had been tolerated, like bacteria in the gut of a sleeping god. But now, something had changed. Something had woken it up, and it wanted to know why. That's when the second Arc launched, and that's when I saw the hand in the sky. It was not flesh. It was not bone. It was not meant to be seen. But in that moment, through the blood-red sky, through the collapsing fabric of reality, I saw it. A single hand, vast beyond comprehension, not reaching for the Arc, creating it. The second Arc did not vanish. It was not consumed. It was remade. A perfect replica of itself appeared beside it, identical in every way, down to the last bolt, the last insignia, the last terrified human within, and then another, and another. Thousands, each an exact copy, each existing for a fraction of a second, and then erased, not destroyed, not obliterated, just undone, as if time itself had reconsidered. The Arc was never meant to be, none of us were. I turned to run, and that's when the hand turned toward me. A finger, vast beyond thought, descended, and I knew it was my turn. I was about to be unmade. The same way entire cities had been, the same way the first Arc had been, the same way Earth itself was being undone. And then a hand grabbed mine. Not the cosmic hand, not the unknowable force. A human hand, pulling me, dragging me toward the last. Arc, run! The voice of a stranger, someone else who had made it. Someone else who had defied whatever force ruled this universe. And in that final moment, as the hand in the sky hovered inches from my existence, we launched. The final Arc, humanity's last hope, ascending into the abyss, into the unknown. But the question remained, had we escaped? Or had we simply entered the next layer of its game? Drifting into oblivion, we made it. Or at least we thought we did. The moment the final Arc left Earth's atmosphere, a heavy silence fell over the ship. No cheers, no celebration, no relief. Just thousands of people staring back at a dying world. Through the observation decks we watched Earth, our home, our prison, being consumed. The sky, now nothing but a void of roiling blackness, was collapsing inward, folding over itself like a wound in space-time. Landscapes twisted into spirals of non-existence. Oceans inverted, rising into the heavens before vanishing altogether. Entire cities crumbled, not into rubble, but into memories, faint, fading remnants of a world that that was no longer real. And then, Earth was gone, not destroyed, not vaporized, simply removed. One moment it was there. The next, it never had been. And yet as we drifted into the endless dark, a single, unbearable truth settled over us. We weren't free, we were still inside. Prison without walls. The Ark sailed into the void, engines roaring against the nothingness. We had a destination, or at least the illusion of one. A course was set for Kepler 442b, a planet deemed habitable in the years before the Exodus, but hours passed, then days, and the stars never changed. No shift in constellations, no parallax, movement, nothing. It was as if space itself had frozen, or worse, as if we weren't moving at all. Then the whispers returned, not through the ship's communications, not over the radio waves inside our minds, a low, droning hum buried beneath our thoughts. It wasn't language, not exactly, more like a feeling, a sensation, like something was watching us, studying us, waiting. Then, on the seventh day, the calm. First person disappeared. His name was Carter Bell, a mechanic. He went to sleep in his bunk. He never woke up, not because he died, not because of any medical condition, because he was gone. His bed was still there, his belongings untouched. But Carter Bell, a man with memories, family, a life, had been erased. Not a single record of him existed in the Ark's database. No birth certificate, no personnel file, no genetic log, as if he had never been born. And yet, we remembered him. We remembered his voice, his laugh, the way he used to hum to himself while working on the engines. But if we tried to describe his face, we couldn't. His features were blurred, indistinct, like a painting smudged by careless hands. That night the captain made a decision. We would not speak of Carter Bell again. We would not acknowledge what had happened. But the Ark was vast, and fear is a wildfire. Word spread, and soon the ship turned against itself. The fractured mind of humanity. Some believed the disappearances were a side effect of the journey, a cosmic phenomenon, a temporal disturbance caused by escaping a collapsing reality. Others, the ones who stared too long into the void, believed something had followed us. Something was inside the Ark, moving unseen, feeding. As paranoia grew, so did the violence. People stopped sleeping. They whispered in corners, accused their neighbors. Some gathered in makeshift prayer groups, convinced this was the final test, that those who vanished had been taken to some higher plane. Others, the desperate, the broken, simply stepped into airlocks and opened the doors. But the most terrifying were those who accepted it, who stared into the black and understood. "We were never meant to leave," they murmured. "We are only pages in a book." A book that was being rewritten. And then on the 12th day the stars changed. The reality shift. It was subtle at first, a single distant star blinking out, then another and another, one by one, like embers snuffed from existence. But then the impossible happened. New stars began appearing, not where the old ones had been, not following the natural laws of stellar formation. They appeared in patterns, they formed symbols, and then they began to move, not drifting like celestial bodies should, but shifting, rearranging, forming something else, something that was watching us. That's when the screaming started. The code in the stars, the ones who could see it, really see it, began to break. They clawed at their eyes, convulsed, on the floor, murmuring things that made no sense. We're inside the machine base, the ink is still wet. It's not a place, it's a language. We are being spoken. And then the numbers appeared across every screen, every console. A countdown. 00622, 000621, 00620. We had no idea what it was counting down to, but we knew one thing. Whatever had erased Earth wasn't finished. The Ark's engines roared to life. We didn't know where we were going, we didn't care, because now the only thing that mattered was escaping whatever was coming. The final revelation, with seconds left on the countdown, a voice, filled the ark, not through the speakers. Inside our minds, it was not loud. It was not angry. It was no calm. You were never supposed to leave. You were never supposed to know, but you ran anyway. The 3. And now you must see. 2. You must see the truth. 001, and then the ark stopped moving, not gradually, not with deceleration, instantly, as if space itself had rewritten its rules, and outside the viewport, we saw it. Not a planet, not a star, a shape, vast, infinite, unfolding across dimensions. We could not comprehend, and in that moment, we understood. Earth had not been our home. It had been a classroom, a test chamber, a prison built to contain us. And now, we had been set free. But freedom was never what we wanted. The final cage, we had seen it. A structure beyond form, beyond reason. Not a planet. Not a station. Something else. It stretched across the void, a twisting, shifting mass of geometries that refused to remain static. Every time we blinked, its shape changed. No, it wasn't changing, it was correcting itself, as if reality itself struggled to define it. At its center, a singular, pulsing rift, a wound in space-time, large enough to consume galaxies. And then, the whispers returned. Welcome. They were no longer distant, no longer buried beneath static. They were inside us, and they carried no malice, no anger, only curiosity. As if the voice or voices had been waiting for us. You ran so far, have fled so fast. But do you even know what you were running from? The captain was the first to speak. Who are you? Silence. Then, we are not what you think. We did not erase your world. We did not hunt you. We only observed the countdown, the disappearances, the impossible rearrangement of stars. It had never been an attack, it had been a test. You misunderstand, the voice continued. Earth was not destroyed, it was relocated. And then the screens aboard the ark flickered to life. The truth about Earth, it was there. Earth, whole, intact, untouched, suspended within a vast glowing lattice, a web of golden filaments stretching across dimensions, a cage, a zoo, a carefully contained ecosystem designed to keep its inhabitants blissfully unaware of the truth. Your world was never real, the voice whispered. It was built for you. A controlled space. A cradle to shield you from the vast, indifferent truth of the cosmos. We are the architects, and you were our experiment. We were never alone. We were never free. We were subjects. Not in a prison, not in a farm, but in a lab. A planet-sized petri dish where humanity was studied, measured, observed, like bacteria multiplying under a microscope. And we had broken containment. We did not expect you to leave, the voice admitted. You were not meant to evolve so quickly. And now you stand at the threshold, unprepared, unready, unfit. The images on screen shifted. We saw others, other Earths, other versions of us, each locked away in their own simulations, their own pocket realities, millions of them, some barely in the Stone Age, others already reaching for the stars, and all of them contained, never meeting. Never seeing the truth because the moment one did, the experiment must be reset. That is the rule. The captain clenched his fists. And what happens to us? The voice hesitated. That has not been decided. The choice. The ark trembled. Lights flickered. Consoles went dead. Something, some force was moving through the ship. We felt it in our bones, a presence, a weight pressing against existence itself. And then the voice spoke again. A decision must be made. You have two paths. You may return to your world. We will erase this knowledge, remove this event from your history. You will forget what you have seen, forget what you have learned, and Earth will be restored to its rightful place. Or, silence. You may leave. Truly leave. We will not stop you. We will not erase you. But you will walk into a universe where you are nothing, where the laws you once understood do not apply, where no God, no fate, no guiding hand will shield you. You will be free, but you will be alone. We stared at the screens, at the image of Earth, safe in its golden web, safe, but asleep. Had that been the real test all along? Not escape, not survival, but choice. The crew broke into chaos. Some begged to go back, to forget, to return to a life of ignorance where the sky was blue and the stars were distant dreams, not prisons. Others refused. They would not return to a lie, even if freedom meant death. The captain turned to us. "This isn't just my decision," he said. "It's all of ours." He pressed a single button on the console. A vote. One final choice. And the results would decide the fate of humanity. The final vote. The numbers appeared on screen and the result was blackness. I woke up. In a field, the wind was soft, the sky was blue, and the world was normal. No void, no shifting stars, no arc, just Earth had it. All been a dream, a hallucination? A trick of a mind stretched too far? I turned on my phone. Checked the date, February 26, 2025. Nothing had changed, or so I thought, because as I walked through the city, through crowds of strangers, through the same streets I had always known, a man passed me, and for a brief second, our eyes met. And I knew, he knew, and the whispers returned. "You made your choice, but some of you remember." Earth was still in its cage. The experiment had been reset, but not perfectly. And now, some of us could see the cracks. We knew the truth. We knew what was waiting beyond the sky, and we knew, no matter how long it took, we would try to escape again. The Hindu final thoughts and call to action. We were never alone, we were never free. But now we know. What would you have chosen? Would you go back to ignorance or step into the unknown? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to XenoChronicles, because this is just the beginning. There are more stories, more mysteries, more truths waiting to be uncovered. And next time we might not have a choice.